let's get into it on how it works. In the first and second versions of multi-login, what we did is we took real fingerprints of real devices and changed some values within a valid value range. For example, we could have altered the number of processing cores, which is hardware concurrency, or for example we might have changed the screen resolutions there and there, and this basically allowed us to generate seemingly unique fingerprints without altering their quality. However, in the third version, we completely redone the whole fingerprint creation process. Forget about fingerprint generation. Welcome to Fingerprint Builder. The Fingerprint Builder not only creates more factual fingerprints, but they are also statistically more relevant. And let me explain how the whole fingerprint building process is done. Okay, so the very first stage is that we gather fingerprints from real devices. They get collected in our database where they are stored. The second stage is the filtering process. So the second stage is when we basically take these fingerprints which we collected from our database and we put them into a series of filters and tests to remove bots, suspicious fingerprints, and fingerprints which are incompatible with our browsers. So essentially at the end of this filter we get good fingerprints which we later can use. However, they do not go to your browser profile straight away. No, then they go into the process of grouping and indexing. This is the third stage, and in the first stage is where the fingerprints basically get divided into elements. They get indexed, grouped, so that they are neatly placed for the next stage. For example, we group these fingerprints based on certain OS types, geolocation, and other parameters. The fourth stage is the building stage. When you go to create a new browser profile, you basically set certain boundaries, constraints in which you want those fingerprints to be built. By boundaries, I mean screen resolution ranges, or operating system types, location, and so on. So basically you put these constraints on how you want these fingerprints to be built. After you've set the criteria, we create a sample based on that criteria. And so we get this sample, and so we have this sample based on your criteria, and again, we do not send them to the browser profile straight away. There is a fifth stage which is called statistical analysis. Basically, when the sample is created, our server, the whole fingerprint builder, it looks at the statistical distribution of each element of the fingerprint in the real world. And at the end, the fingerprint will come out based on the sum of those probabilities. Here's an example. Around 3% of all users have IPv6 addresses in their local IP list. This means that when you create 100 browser profiles, around 3 of them will have IPv6 in their local IP list. Now please note, this is just an example, and it's not a representation of what will happen if you create 100 browser profiles. It's just an example of how the statistical analysis work. And at the end, you basically get the fingerprint inside the browser profile, which you can use, which you can act upon and store and use it for your operations. One of the questions you may ask is how we create unique browser fingerprints when we have so many filters and constraints. Well, the answer to this question is actually twofold. The first is we have gathered a very large database of real devices, and the database is being updated with hundreds of fingerprints every minute. The second reason is that on the latest stage of the fingerprint builder, we can create hybrids of a fingerprint from different devices by basically checking two things. Can such fingerprint exist in the real world? And what is the statistical probability of such fingerprint existing in the real world? Therefore, we can create large quantities of fingerprints which are not only factually but statistically sound. Basically, this is how our fingerprint builder works. As you may see, that it should drastically improve the performance of your work, because the fingerprints are not only more factual right now, they are constantly updated, and thirdly, they are more statistically sound, so your browser profiles should fall within the normal distribution of users that occur in the real world. And I guess the video is coming to an end. Thanks very much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to our Telegram channel and our YouTube channel, and I'll see you in other videos. Thanks very much for watching. Bye.
Fire up.